Hi guys, I'm back again today with another video. I know we look weird, but I'm gonna my other mic is crazy. You know that sound that it usually has. It's like that again, so we're using this. So let's see if this works. But yeah, hopefully soon I can get a new mic so that we will be done with that problem. When I say soon, maybe in a month or two is the plausibility. I'm saving up for it because it's the expensive ones. But anyways, beautiful peeps, who cares? We have here the most impressive church in Paris, not Notre Dame. So I don't know where. I don't even think I know any other church in Paris. So yeah, we're gonna see. Before we start, don't forget to subscribe, click the bell button, and let's begin.
Gothic architecture, distinguished by its use of pointed arches, ribbed vaults, and flying buttresses, flourished in France in the 13th century in a period of architecture known as High Gothic, where the construction of cathedrals reached an exceptional level of refinement and height. Around 1230, there was a reaction against the huge scale of High Gothic cathedrals, and
Oh.
architects began to use the same structural approach on smaller scaled buildings, which brought a new sense of intimacy and an increased complexity of detail now intended to be appreciated at close quarters. This
Okay. This is reminding me of the uh, church in Cologne. I think you guys would know what I'm talking about, right? It's giving me that kind of like same outside architecture. Yeah, it's really beautiful. Like my question always when I see these places or this type of architecture is how the Famalama did they do that without modern technology, right? It's so beautiful that it's incomprehensible. What is English? Um, like how they did this, how they built this. I know it took ages, but still.
new style was later known as Rayonnant Gothic. The word rayonnant is
Rayonnant
French for radiant, and this name is due to the rays of light that radiate through the windows. The nature of the style
Chateau.
made it ideal for palace chapels, of which the most spectacular example is the Sainte-Chapelle in Paris. Built between 1242 and 1248, the Sainte-Chapelle was commissioned by King Louis IX to house the relics of the Passion which he had acquired from the Emperor of Constantinople, among them the crown of thorns and a fragment of the True Cross. These relics cost him twice as much as the construction of the building, and he brought them to France in 1238. The Ile de la Cité, the heart of the city of Paris since antiquity, was dominated by Notre Dame Cathedral on the east, and on the west by the Palais de la Cité, the royal residence of the kings of France in the Middle Ages, making the island the seat of political and religious power. The chapel was built attached to the Palais de la Cité as a symbol of the king's piety and authority. So as you approach the building, standing within a small courtyard inside the palace, you'll notice its structure is slightly different than the larger cathedrals. In Gothic cathedrals, you have flying buttresses to hold the structure of the arches. But because this building is so small, flying buttresses would prevent light from passing through the windows. And the main objective of Gothic architecture is to get as much light as possible inside the building. So in order to be able to have such small buttresses that could support the thrust of the vaults, the architect of the Sainte-Chapelle designed a system of internal iron rods that encircle the building, linking the buttresses horizontally. These rods are concealed in the masonry and pass across the windows, also serving as the framework that supports the glass. Thanks to this ingenious dematerialization of the structure, and to the wondrous properties of medieval stained glass, the interior of the Sainte-Chapelle has no equal, as the chapel is flooded with colorful rays of light that enrich the spiritual and divine experience of entering the chapel. The arrangement of the pinnacles and other elements such as the balustrade, the gargoyles, and the exterior tracery mimic the shape of a reliquary reflecting the building's purpose. But they also mimic the shape of a medieval crown with its jewels and ornaments. This resemblance to a crown could be interpreted as a symbolic homage to the relic it was built to enshrine, reinforcing its spiritual and sacred significance. Making the total height of the building over 75 meters, the spire is built of cedar wood and covered with lead for weather resistance. Statues of saints, gargoyles, and ornate carvings highlight the craftsmanship and the attention to detail. The spire not only accentuates the verticality of the building, making it visible from the distance, but also serves as a symbolic element that stretches towards the heavens. The Sainte-Chapelle has two levels. In the ground floor, there is a room with a low ceiling that was a chapel for the servants of the royal palace, while the spacious upper chapel was used by the royal family and the court.
I've noticed that a lot in European architecture when it comes to like chateaus, because we've reacted to some chateaus, right, in the past, and it's usually like that. They have like that down part wherein it's the maid quarters, and it's usually very lower ceiling, and then you go to like the main house or like the bedrooms, and they have higher ceilings. So I guess it's like an architectural choice of those times, maybe this times as well, but we don't know. I mean, I don't know personally, but let me know. I know there's a lot of no in that sentence.
The ground chapel is accessed from the courtyard, and the upper chapel is accessed from the palace. From the main facade, you can appreciate the double height of the upper chapel. The rose window of the Sainte-Chapelle was built in the 15th century, using a later style of Gothic architecture known as flamboyant, which is French for flaming. And it was called that because you can see how the stone tracery has curves forming flame-like shapes. Other elements from the exterior are also from the 15th century, such as the two small spire on top of the two towers on each side of the main facade, both decorated with fleurs de lis beneath sculpted crowns of thorns. As you enter the ground chapel, you'll notice the polychromia on the interior. Usually Gothic architecture is not colored, but the walls, columns, and traceries of the Sainte-Chapelle are completely painted with bright colors such as gold, red, and green. And the vaults are painted of royal blue with fleurs de lis. The columns inside alternate between red and blue, and each represent the two royal families from which the king, Louis IX, descended. The blue columns with the fleurs de lis represent the Capetian dynasty through his father, and the red columns with the golden castle represent the kingdom of Castile in Spain through his mother. And at the end of the chapel, in the center you'll see a statue of Louis IX, known also as King Saint Louis. This chapel is very compact as it has columns in the middle of the space, and the ceilings are low, giving a cave-like effect thanks to how close you can see.
Okay. I think it's in the video because I thought like there was water or something spilling, but I think it's part of the sound.
The vaults. As I said, originally you would have entered each chapel through the central portal on each floor, but the way you access the upper chapel now as you visit the Sainte-Chapelle is through the spiral staircases on the sides after visiting the ground floor chapel. So after being compacted in the lower chapel, and then compacted even more as you climb up the narrow stairs, you finally get to the upper chapel that gives you an amazing expansion of light and space.
Wow. Mm.
Because of the structure conformed of thin buttresses, there are almost no walls inside. The whole space is contained by 670 square meters of stained glass.
Damn.
Most of the glass panels are original, and they depict 1,113 scenes from the Bible. The three central windows of the apse represent scenes of the life of Jesus, taken from the New Testament. All the windows on the north and south sides, except for the last one on the south corner, represent scenes from the Old Testament, such as the creation or scenes from the life of Moses. The window on the corner depicts the history of the relics that were held in the chapel, presenting King Louis IX as the legitimate successor of the kings of Israel. And finally, the rose window, being oriented towards the west, depicts the book of Revelation, symbolizing the end of times. The most fascinating thing about the scenes depicted in the windows is that, although they are biblical scenes from antiquity, the characters are depicted as medieval people, wearing medieval clothes and armor,
Yeah,
and
true.
walking
I
in
just
medieval towns
noticed.
surrounded by medieval castles. Kings from antiquity wearing medieval crowns, and ancient priests wearing medieval clothes. These biblical scenes are presented through a medieval lens, because artists from the Middle Ages could only draw upon their contemporary concept of king, attire, and architecture. The plan of the chapel has 33 meters in length and 10.5 meters in width, and the vaults reach a height of 20.5 meters.
Ooh.
A small space for a Gothic building, yet
Ooh.
it retains that sense of a small space for a Gothic.
You can see there's a lot of visitors, right? Like, look, everybody's taking pictures, looking up. Is this like a still functioning church? I know that's a dumb question, but it's a genuine one. Like, do they still use this every Sunday? Is it kind of like weekends or is for the function like being a church, and then weekdays is for tourists to kind of like pay itself, right? Like you need, if you want to keep this, you need income. So maybe that's where the church gets money to kind of like fund itself. So if something goes wrong, they can like fix it with the tourist money. Or is this even free? I don't know. You guys let me know in the comments. That's fascinating. If I ever find myself in France, or I mean, I don't know if it's in France, but in Paris, I will try to visit.
And the vaults reach a height of 20.5 meters. A small space for a Gothic building, yet it retains that sense of verticality, characteristic of Gothic architecture. The bottom of the walls have a place for the court members to sit, and in the third traverse of the chapel, there's a niche carved in each side of the walls, each decorated with archivolts and sculpture angels and richly painted. These spaces were for the king and queen to sit during ceremonies. At the end of the chapel lies the altar, which once held the 22 relics that King Louis IX had acquired. The Gothic altar is adorned with gilded elements and intricate carvings, and it serves as a focal point of the chapel's interior, drawing the eye upwards towards the stained glass windows and the vaulted ceiling. You can see that the vaults from the upper chapel are also painted blue, but instead of having painted fleur-de-lis like the lower chapel, They have golden stars. This distinction in decoration visually represents the medieval belief in the divine right of kings, where the monarchy is seen as ruling under divine authority. The fleur de lis in the lower chapel symbolize the monarchy's protection over its subjects, while the starry ceiling in the upper chapel symbolizes the heavens, emphasizing the royal family's proximity to God. Just outside the chapel in the top level, you can see the main portal through which the royal family and its court would access the chapel back in the Middle Ages. You can see the figure of
Wow.
Christ in the center of the tympanum. Next to him are two angels with the two main relics that the chapel
Mm.
held, the crown of thorns and the cross. And on the sides are Virgin Mary and John the Baptist. Below, the lintel shows Saint Michel weighing the souls of the dead,
Oh.
those sent to heaven on the left and the damned on the right.
Damn, I didn't know it was detailed.
On the lower walls, you see panels depicting biblical scenes. On the left, you have the creation, and on the right, Noah's Ark. Most of the portal was destroyed during the French Revolution, and it was remade by a French sculptor in the 19th century. Several parts of the Sainte-Chapelle were damaged during the Revolution, and in the 1840s, scholars, archaeologists, and architects restored the chapel to its medieval state, being as faithful as possible with the original drawings and descriptions that had survived. The most famous of these architects was Eugène Emmanuel Viollet-le-Duc, who, after
Duc.
working on the Sainte-Chapelle, dedicated his life to restore Gothic architecture, most notably the Cathedral of Notre. In the Middle Ages, Jean de Jandin, a French writer, described the experience of entering the Sainte-Chapelle, which gives us a sense of what medieval people thought when entering these impressive Gothic churches. But also that most beautiful of chapels, the Chapel of the King, most fittingly situated underneath the walls of the royal palace, is graced with the most firm and indissoluble structure of the most solid of the stones, the most select colors of paints, the precious gilding of the images, the decorous transparency of the glowing glass all around, the most beautiful ornaments of the altars, the wonderful virtues of the sanctuaries, the design of the reliquaries externally adorned with gleaming gems, and so great exaggeration of beauty is generously given to that house of prayer that, upon entering it, as if carried off to heaven, one would not without reason think has entered one of the most precious chambers of paradise. I hope you learned and
Oh,
enjoyed. Please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and if you like Paris,
I didn't think he was the voice behind the narration a while ago. Is he? I think so. But I didn't think this is not the person I was imagining. If you didn't see me, would you think my voice goes with me? I don't like my voice. But anyways, beautiful peeps, this was just wow. Like, I love the interior. It's so beautiful. The carving, the sculpture, it's just so very detailed. Like, the architecture back in the days are so detailed and so refined. I can't even like compare it to modern day architecture. I mean, there is some beauty here and there, but it's just unbeatable. Just the the past. But anyways, beautiful peeps, let me know in the comments. Have you been to this specific church, Sainte-Chapelle. Let's see. I bet I sound horrible. So I didn't know it was pronounced like that. I would have pronounced it as Chapel. Saint Chapel, yeah. But I like Saint Chapelle. I think I will name my kid Saint Chapelle. Okay, my child will hate me. But anyways, yeah, this is beautiful, and let me know if you've been or you've actually like been in that area, passed by, I've seen it from the outside but never went in. Let me know down in the comments. Thank you guys for joining, and I hope this works. I hope you can hear me. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.